in the trap.
This is for the dollar.
Do you believe in miracles?
Hey, I play chess, but only in 4D. I'm by myself, but they think I'm 4D. When they see me online, they think they know me. Go ahead, like and subscribe, you gotta show me. I applied pressure and they tried to reject it. Clearly ain't see I was a diamond, so they didn't accept it. Told me I was a failure, so I said F it. Might even start my own school and teach them a lesson. Yeah, I'ma call it South Harmon. Fly down south and get the South poppin'. One day I'ma give you a walkthrough and introduce you to this walk tool. I know you lost, that's just Dynasty talk. Cause you can't start no franchise without no Dynasty chart. I took a break from the game, they throw my Dynasty stock. Till I came back like Wembanyama, I feel like Coach Pop. I can't say that I'm the GOAT, cause you ain't gonna agree. But if I own my own farm, I can make the GOAT. Me, the ladies love the beard and they used to love the goatee. That's when I was a lamb, burning music on CDs. I wasn't born in 88, December 87, that was 16 days away. Might fly to Dallas, why not? I just got paid today. When I land this dirt statue, I came to fade away. Check the timeline for the stories and the play-by-play. My life a Patreon link, you gotta pay to play. I work 16 hours, boy, that's an 8 and 8. X Factor like Dez Bryant, my boy 88. Why dream light when you living like a heavyweight? This ain't a 1 week thing, we grind like every day. They know my destination, Devi, like I hang with Ray. If they ain't know my name, I bet they know my name today. Treat this mic like an ATM, let's make a trade today. Drop this on Fizzle Friday, cause that's my favorite day. And I'm gonna do it my way, cause that's my favorite way. They tried to put me on the shelf like I'm layaway. Told me it ain't no way, so I made a way. Welcome to South Harmon, I'm glad you here today. Welcome to South Harmon, I'm glad you here today. Welcome to South Harmon, I'm glad you here today. Hit that Patreon link if you here to stay, Treat this mic like an ATM, let's make a trade today.
What up, fantasy football faithful? It's your boy, Matty Kiwoom. Welcome to the latest episode of The Game Plan. It feels like my voice still hasn't fully recovered from Canton, Ohio, but tune in to 1 o'clock here at the South Harmon YouTube channel to see Adam's video that he put together. He gave us a little preview on the AMA, but the full release will be out today at 1 o'clock. I'm going to make sure you check that out. Speaking of the expo, speaking of the chat, my man Fizzle in the chat. What's up, Fizz? We talked at the expo. We got a lot of good conversations in Canton, a lot of business related. You know, Fizz is exactly who he comes off as. He's the man, cool as hell, but he's about business. He also has a great mind for entertainment. Obviously, you've heard the songs, the intros, you've heard his albums, but he also says I also learned he's a bit competitive. Once Cody called him out for not having an intro, my man went out and wrote an intro that night. Gave me a little preview in Canton. It was sick. If you notice at the top there, I had to use an old intro because the game plan doesn't have one. Fizz, you're in the chat. When you get in that stew, maybe get a little game plan intro going too, my brother. I love it. But first of all, shout out to everyone here on this beautiful Sunday morning. You know, the NFL's in training camp. They're in preseason, but guys, so are we. We're getting ready for Sunday fun days. We're getting ready for NFL Sundays, fantasy football Sundays. And the game plan will absolutely be a part of that each and every Sunday at 9 a.m. That will lead into the start or sit show. Get those lineups tight, get them right. So we are in training camp too here. We're getting ready, but I just want to go through. What's up, Kels? What's up, Kels? Castle Black in the house, of course. The main man, Fizzle Dollar. Wipe your eyes. The boys live. See, he comes up with these lines without even trying. Redwoods, what's up? Oh, what's up, Ryan? Mahan McCann, he's the man. But yes, ATM's in the house. What's up, ATM? You know, shout out ATM. He sent me a nice message last night. I haven't got a chance to reply because I just pretty much woke up 10 minutes ago getting ready for the show. But, I just want to let you know I appreciate you too, ATM. You are the man. And South Harmon is just getting started. I mean, we are absolutely about to kill it in 2024. And in 2025, they don't even know what's coming. Big Corey's in the – oh, my God. Corey is – whoa. I mean, Corey is now a content connoisseur. So shout out to Big Corey. Again, another guy I got to meet in Canton who is absolutely the man. Very, very pleasure. It was all mine to meet you fellas in Canton, but we got to get back to business. We got to get back to getting ready for our seasons, for our, I'm a seasonal guy. I'm talking seasonal here. Of course, Dynasty, you've already been up and at them. But seasonal drafts, they're about to kick off in a big, big way. And so today's show is going to be a fun one. We're going to play a little fantasy football Mortal Kombat. I have 8 rounds here. Guys with similar ADPs or maybe a same position. We're going to play a little arbitrage, but we're going to go through why, we're going to plead the case for player A. We're going to plead the case for player B. And then, the chat can go ahead and leave their comments and who they would rather have at this current ADP. And then I'll go ahead and drop who I would rather have. Not necessarily the higher ranked guy. My rankings are out, so you can go over to southharmonff.com right now, get those win sheets. Win sheets 1.0. If you buy them, they're $4.99, but you get the constant updates. They'll be updated each and every week towards the end of the week with news and notes and things that happen. There will be some movers and shakers, of course, but once you get it, you'll always get the updates. You don't have to keep getting it over and over again, so you can check that out. Over at South Harmon FF. But before we get into Mortal Kombat, we got to go through the news and notes. This is the Sunday show, so we've had a whole week of notes. Here's your chance to get them all right here, right now. So we're going to start here from some of the most important fantasy football news. Of course, you've already heard about this, but we're going to bring it up again in case you just emerged from a rock. Or if you've been in a week-long stupor because you went to Canton. Which, I mean, I wouldn't blame you for that. But J.J. McCarthy, of course, as you know, he's going to be missing the entire 2024 season with a torn meniscus. Sam Darnold will now play pressure-free quarterback, if that's even a thing. But at least he won't have the 10th overall pick breathing down his neck each and every snap. So it's Sam Darnold's team. And what does that mean for the Vikings? What it means is whatever your thoughts were, whatever the takes that you had heading into last week are now, in my opinion, completely solidified. So if you were worried about the pass catchers because of the uncertainty at quarterback, well, you could be a little more certain, but I don't know if you should be excited. Now, I was okay with Justin Jefferson. I loved Jordan Addison at cost here. I even loved TJ Hawkinson getting that injury discount. And now I'm just that much more. I'm not excited about the ceiling, but I'm that much more confident on the median, the floor even. So right now I got Darnold at quarterback 25. So I'm not over my skis. I'm not too excited. I understand the limitations of a guy who has yet to truly fire in the NFL being a quarterback, but I trust Kevin O'Connell. I trust his offense, and I trust that they'll put Darnold in situations where he can be successful, and hopefully that the guy does not see ghosts on the sideline, which is still one of the all-time clips of Monday Night Football. Jordan Addison, his teammate, he was carted off. First, I have to say this. I heard someone else say on a podcast, so I'm not original here, but I think it's super important to say. Can we stop caring about the cart in training camp? Every injury, the guy goes on the cart. They're not going to make a guy walk a quarter mile to the trainer's room even if he just stubbed his toe. They're going to put him on the cart. So stop tweeting he's on the cart and get us all worried, okay? Because not 5 minutes after he was carted away, did Kevin O'Connell come out and say that he's not worried? He even said, and I quote, "I don't see him missing any extended time." We could see him back this week practicing for the Vikings. So again, I like Addison at cost right now. I still like it. There may be a little bit of a discount coming his way. He's coming off the board in the early 7th, right around pick 75. And I still like that cost. I think we could see him kind of maybe drift down into the 80s. And now you're getting to a real nice price point here in our seasonal drafts. Jahmyr Gibbs is dealing with a soft tissue injury of the hamstring persuasion. The Lions are not really letting a lot of info out. As of right now, I had Jahmyr Gibbs as a top 12 redraft player. I'm going to have to rethink that. I'm going to have to have some quiet time over the next couple hours and just really zone in and kind of figure it out. Because I don't know if I can keep him that high considering a soft tissue injury on a guy that, didn't even eclipse 200 carries last year. They wanted him to have more. Does this allow them to balk at the situation of kind of getting him there? Because he kind of squeezed out all the juice that he could last year to become a really good fantasy player, scored touchdowns, I think, in his last 6 games, or averaged a touchdown over his last 6 games or something like that. And right now, he's coming off the board right around pick 10. So he's a first-round pick. I think we're going to have to fade it back to being more mid-second here if we're going to really kind of deploy strong game plans in our seasonal drafts. Hollywood Brown is out 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury. This is a tough one because we heard about the rapport with him and Pat Mahomes. But now missing some time potentially into the regular season is going to cost him a lot. And I dropped him down to wide receiver 43 in my seasonal ranks. Of course, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are going up. Zay caught a touchdown yesterday. He looked really good in the Chiefs' second preseason game. And Rice, I mean, it looks like there'll be either little suspension or no suspension this year. So if that's going to be the case, those guys have to come up in my ranks even more than I already have put them up. But as I said, right now, Hollywood Brown's fallen to 43 in the Jacoby Myers, Cortland Sutton range, and I think that's kind of where he'll stay because I do want some exposure to Hollywood Brown in our seasonal drafts in our home leagues. I still want him on my team and put him on my bench because this is the guy that will have some big games. And of course, in our seasonal format, sometimes we're looking for edges in terms of the guys that can perform at a big level a couple times throughout the end of the season. So Hollywood Brown, it sucks to see him injured because I thought he was going to be a nice addition, a confident target in Pat Mahomes. A couple of other receivers were dinged up. I don't believe any of them are all that serious. Rashid Shaheed, Deontay Johnson, Puka Nacua. One of these things are not like the other. You could figure out who. But they're all dealing with minor ailments. There's really not much info that's come out, but it seems as if they will get back on the practice field and be ready for week 1. So I haven't adjusted any of them in my rankings. This next guy I'm going to talk about was not really high up in my rankings, but he's really becoming more of a dynasty liability than a seasonal one. He's a complete avoid in seasonal formats, but Kendre Miller still being sidelined with a hamstring injury, and the Saints, they are just completely they're just getting more and more frustrated with his lack of ability of staying on the field, getting on the field, and being able to practice in a way where he can actually get on the field and maybe even push Alvin Kamara. So he's a fade to me completely in seasonal, but in dynasty, it's time to start rethinking any of those Kendre Miller shares you may have. CMC worked on the side field and looked, quote, spry, running, cutting, catching passes. Love hearing that because there's a lot of 101 investments in Christian McCaffrey, and it's important that we get his money games out of him because he's just a warp destroyer, absolutely destroyed 4 wins over replacement in seasonal leagues last year. So I want that guy on the field. I want him healthy. Last night, this is a blow. Jaylen Warren left the game with another hamstring injury, the extent of which we don't know quite yet. But Najee Harris season, which it's always been Najee Harris season if you follow me, but it's just opening that up even more. Najee got the early carries, early snaps with the ones in their second preseason game, even stayed on the field on a 3rd and 5. Right now I have Najee Harris at my running back 20 in the Tony Pollard, Kenneth Walker range. I don't know if he'll go up too much more than that because this is so far the running back landscape looks kind of strong at the top. I don't know if he'll go higher than 20. I'm pretty high on him in terms of consensus as is. And then I got Jaylen Warren at 23, so I was excited about both. I would probably move Jaylen Warren back into the Devin Singletary, Jerome Ford range and potentially put Najee up into the James Cook, Aaron Jones range. So 50, 60. So we'll see how that situation plays out. Another rookie that we were all excited about, especially in our seasonal leagues, Tyrone Tracy. He seems to be recovering well after he was seen running and cutting on Thursday, which again, another guy carted off. He's taking off with the cart, but it seems like he'll make it back in time to play for week 1. That situation in the Giants backfield seems super murky as Eric Gray again yesterday played pretty well for the Giants. But yeah, Tyrone Tracy, I got him. He's probably a late round stash for me in most leagues. Right now I'm at running back 52 and I'm probably not going to keep him much higher than that. Christian Kirk is dealing with a minor calf injury. I am at wide receiver 30, but I may have to swap him with a guy like Deontay Johnson if Johnson gets back healthy first. And this last bit of news is really only for me, but it's my show. I can do what I want. So I might be the only person that cares about this, but it's fine. Corey Davis worked out with the Bills. Yes, I loved Corey Davis. I thought Corey Davis was going to be so good. He was so not, but that's okay. Maybe he gets another chance with Josh Allen, and maybe I can just enjoy having some Corey Davis success in my life. But that's it. That's it for the news and notes. So we're going to get into fantasy football Mortal Kombat. But before I do, let's see what we've got in the chat here. Castle Black, Gibbs getting scary at his ADP. I agree. As the information stays close to the vest, that's great for Dan Campbell and their purposes of winning Super Bowl. But come on, it sucks for us as we draft our seasonal teams. Let's go. Have some respect for the seasonal folks there, Dan Campbell. And Ryan can give me that. Yep, I agree. I completely agree. Montgomery is now becoming a super value. I'm higher on him than consensus. I have him at running back 17 in my season ranks as is. And I mean, he with any type of, I don't know if I can move him up. That's pretty high as is, but yeah, he's becoming an absolute steal right now at ADP. Kendre or Gus, give me Gus Bus. Give me Gus Edwards, because Kendre, you can't make the club if you're in the tub. And they're getting more and more frustrated with the second-year running back who is talented, but if he finds his way, if he's on the depth chart and he's having to climb over the Jamal Williams and then Alvin Kamara, and plus I don't know how much I even love that offense. I'm getting more and more worried about that offense. I'm starting to think I might want to sell Chris Olave at his price right now. Well, it's still quite high because he's been a producer, but man, I'm a little nervous for him this year. And then Fizz says, go draft both Monty and Gibbs. It does make sense, Fizz, as long as you're not having to use your 11th overall pick on Gibbs and he's out to start. But, of course, the situation developing. And because, I mean, if you look at my ranks and you see I have Gibbs at running back 4 and Montgomery at 17, I am all about taking both. I don't think that is an issue at all. It feels icky. Did I say icky? It feels icky. But having both is fine. If you had them both last year, you'd be laughing your way to the freaking fantasy playoffs. So I'm with you, Fizz. You can take both here, especially with the discount that's currently going on for David Montgomery. All right, let's get into our first Mortal Kombat fantasy football battle. Battle of older wide receivers, guys in their 30s or pushing 30s. Amari Cooper versus Deebo Samuel. So first I'll make the case for Amari Cooper, then I'll make the case for Deebo Samuel, and that'll be the pattern that we run throughout all these matchups, and then I'll give who I would take at their current price. And then I want to hear it in the chat. Leave it in the chat. Fizz, Ryan, Jake, Castle Black, Christian, all those guys, leave who you would rather have in the chat after the cases are made. So Amari Cooper last year, 2023, 128 targets, 72 receptions, 1,250 receiving yards. He had 5 touchdowns. That was good for 15.1 fantasy points per game. Wide receiver 17 on a points per game basis. Some of his underlying metrics, his analytical stuff that was encouraging. 2.35 yards per out run. That was top 15. 2.20 yards per team pass attempt. That was top 13 in the league. Here's another reason why I did like me some Amari Cooper. Or I do like me some Amari Cooper this year in relative to last year's production, because he was 10th in unrealized air yards, which means there was a lot of incomplete passes thrown deep his way. And his expected fantasy points was 3.32 points higher than his actual fantasy points per game. That's a lot of meat left on that bone. And with him and Deshaun Watson building their rapport another year, maybe we see him cut into a lot of that and turn that into actual fantasy points, which is exactly what we want. Last year, he had a 1.32 wins over replacement. That was 15th among wide receivers, 29th overall. Current ADP is coming off the board right around 57.5 in the mid-5th. I have him as wide receiver 23 in my ranks. Now, let's talk about the case for Deebo Samuel. Last year, 89 targets, 60 receptions, 892 receiving yards. He had 7 receiving touchdowns, but 5 rushing touchdowns, 16.3 fantasy points per game, another top 12 season for Deebo Samuel on a points per game basis. Deebo did what Deebo does. He was 9th in YAC. He had 527 yards after catch. He put a 2.45 yards per route run together. That was 12th. I mean, he is dynamic. He can catch the ball at the line of scrimmage and break it away, or he can make plays down the field. He is truly talented, and he's in an offense that's the Niners offense is stacked, and it's really a fantastic offense for fantasy football. Excuse me, which led to him having a 2.74 fantasy points per target, which was the most in the NFL. If you're on a team like that and you could provide those type of skill sets, this is the type of thing that you get from your players. He had a 1.38 WARP last year. That's 12th amongst wide receivers and 23rd overall. So again, another really strong season for Big Deebo, but he's coming at a little bit more expensive price. He's coming off the board around pick 30, 31, somewhere in the mid-third round. I am at receiver 20. Now, the case here is arbitrage. This is an arbitrage battle. Do you want the receiver in the 3rd or the 5th? And I would say, if I was being candid, if you had a little truth serum in me like I had over in Canton, I'd say have them both. I want them both. I want to take Deebo in the 3rd, and I want to take Amari in the 5th. But given how close they are in my rankings and given how I see 2024 playing out, if I could only pick one, give me Amari Cooper in the 5th round. That extra 2-round cushion, it's a nice little gap. But like I said, if you have the chance in your seasonal drafts to get both, because Deebo in the 3rd is good value in Amari in the 5th. I love that value. The next Mortal Kombat, I don't know if you call it a Mortal Kombat. What do you call it? Fantasy football face-off. We'll figure it out. This is, we'll figure this out. This is actually closer in ADP, closer in their career arcs, but who would you rather have? The Slim Reaper, Devonta Smith, or T. Higgins? Let's make the case for Devonta Smith, shall we? What we got in the chat here? What we got? Amari, yes, let's go. ATM, you gotta love the Browns, baby. Castle Black's going to go with Deebo, dynamic player, dynamic offense. Is either gone or rusty? That's very true. It's possible. Cooper has ADP for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Castle Black. If you can get both, get both. I think that's the kind of the way to go, and especially in our seasonal formats. We don't have to worry about longevity. We're just looking about 2024. So let's make the case here for Devonta Smith for the Slim Reaper. In 2023, he had 112 targets, caught 81 of them for 1,066 yards. He had 7 receiving touchdowns, which was good for 14.2 fantasy points per game, the 20th highest ranked receiver in that regard. He had the 11th best true catch rate, and he was top 20 in total route wins. Neither stat is surprising. We know he's a very crisp route runner. This is a kid that had 1,800 receiving yards when he went on to win the Heisman at Alabama, and he's had a good professional career throughout. So it makes complete sense that he was able to get open quite a bit for the Eagles last year. And we're projecting, and this is a big deal for anyone who likes Devonta Smith, we're projecting him to get a whole bunch of snaps coming out of the slot in Kellen Moore's offense, which could potentially put him in that Keenan Allen role. And we saw how dynamic Keenan Allen was in that type of role for the Chargers when Kellen Moore was their offensive coordinator. Last year, Devonta Smith, the Slim Reaper, had 1.29 wins over replacement. That was the 17th highest receiver, 34th overall. Cracking that top 35 is big for Devonta Smith. Right now, he's coming off the board right on pick 45, somewhere in the mid to late 4th. And I got him at wide receiver 15. I got big expectations for Devonta Smith this year. Now let's make the case for T. Higgins. Last year, in only 12 games, you got to keep that in mind, but he had 76 targets, caught 42 of them, 656 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. He had 11.5 fantasy points per game. That was 40th amongst wide receivers. And he, like I said, only played the 12 games, so that's why the numbers were a little bit lesser than Smith's. But think about T. Higgins is a thing that I hate bringing up because it's kind of bro science, as I call it. It's not really something you can quantify. It's not really something you can put pen to pad and be 100% confident in. But I do think this is a bit of bona fide bro science. Higgins is playing for payday. He's going to try to ball out. Any nagging injury, he's going to push through it. Every time he's going to go a little bit extra harder at practice. He's playing to make that next big contract happen to become another team's wide receiver one, which I do think will help him achieve the projections that we're putting on T. Higgins. But if you want to draft him right now, you got to take him right around 55, somewhere in the mid-5th. I have him at wide receiver 29. For me, I'm seeing it here in the chat. Smitty all day. There it is. Smitty again. I know Corey's an Eagles fan, so I get it. I knew that was going to happen. But I got to go Smitty here. It's got to be Smitty handily. You're not really getting much value. This isn't really much of an arbitrage play if you're talking about a half a round difference. And yet here's T. Higgins is set to smash. D. Smith is set to absolutely smash. So we're going to go with Devonta Smith here, and it's really not going to be all that close. Here in the chat, too, we all on the same page that this is a for sure Devonta Smith victory. The next player, the two next players here that I'm going to talk about are kind of the zero RB potential studs here. These are the two guys that you can wait on running back for our seasonal purposes, and you'll be able to find them potentially be difference makers at running back as you kind of build around these type of guys. But it's someone I talked about earlier, Jaylen Warren, but then one of my favorites, Brian Robinson Jr. So as right now, let's go through the case to play or to pick Jaylen Warren. Last year, he had 784 rushing yards. He added 61 receptions, which was a big deal for his development for the Steelers offense. He had almost 400 receiving yards, had 4 total touchdowns. He had 11.6 fantasy points per game last year, which was just outside of the top 25. But again, this is a player that you can get a little bit later. You can kind of do some things with in terms of your builds and still potentially get a top 30 running back. Some of the analytical profile things that were very encouraging was his ability to create. Last year, he was 5.5 yards per touch, juke rate 31.9%, and he evaded 67 tackles. He had 8.1% breakaway runs, and he created 4.65 yards per touch. Now, that is a big deal because every single one of those metrics were top 7. The case for Warren is the case between, do efficiencies dip when volume goes up? I don't know if volume is going to go up, though, folks. His role is his role. Najee's still there. They didn't extend the 5th-year option on Najee, so the thought is, well, they're going to use Najee. So I don't see a way where the volume skyrockets for Warren, but I do think the efficiencies will stick around as long as he comes back healthy. This is a big if when it comes to health because, of course, hamstring injuries are simply not fun. Last year, Jaylen Warren had a .88 wins over replacement. That was 25th amongst running backs and 76th overall. Good player right now. He's coming off the board at right around pick 95, somewhere in the early 9th, late 8th. So again, he's a great player in terms of your zero RB builds, which in seasonal drafts I have kind of elevated. I've kind of drifted in that general direction. Hey man, all the time when you're around your buddies. If he scores, you play many man. He goes off for 25 fantasy points, you can play many man. You could that's a bonus. That doesn't matter for fantasy purposes per se, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Last year, B-Rob had 733 rushing yards, added 36 receptions, and it's not a lot. It's not even close to as much as at 61, but from 9, he only had 9 in the 12 games he played as a rookie. So to elevate that to 36 shows a progression in the passing attack, which is great. You love to see that out of those guys that are labeled early down plotters. All of a sudden, you see them have a little bit extra shake in their game. They can make some plays in the passing game. And all of a sudden, that's when those guys become like true difference makers in fantasy. He had 9 total touchdowns. He was 13.2 fantasy points per game. He was running back 22 on a points per game basis. He had last year, some of his numbers that stood out to me was actually his pass. We talked about pass catching. He had 10.2 yards per reception. That was the most amongst running backs. And that's a big deal. Like I said, we know he's a good early down grinder. We know that he should get the opportunities at first and second down for the Commanders. Where we can lose hope or lose interest in a guy like Robinson is the fact that he's not projected to be the everyday or the third down back most, because of course they have Austin Eckler. Now, I have a video dropping this week of some of my ADP fades. Make sure you check that out here on the South Harmon Fantasy Football Network, because I'm not all that excited about what he, or I should say Austin Eckler, will bring this year. Last year, the one, maybe the surprise of the year in terms of wins over replacement could potentially be my man Brian Robinson, who put a 1.23 wins over replacement. 1.23. So he's a win above replacement last year. 13th highest amongst running backs, 37th overall, which puts him in the range of like the Chris Olaves and the Nico Collins last year in redraft. Big deal for Brian Robinson. Right now, you can get him at 106, somewhere in the mid to late ninth. For me, I'm going to put it up here because my boy knows me all too well. He's going Warren. I'm going B-Rob. I'm going to go B-Rob all day long. I do have some Warren in Dynasty that I'm not getting rid of. But in terms of my 2024 redraft teams, my seasonal teams, I'm going B-Rob, but Castle Black's also going Warren. Good players here. I think that even though I'm taking B-Rob, I think what we can learn here is if you want to wait in your seasonal drafts and go like hero RB with, you get one early and then kind of wait, you can do it, because there's some players out there like Brian Robinson and Jaylen Warren that'll make your life I'll say a little bit easier in terms of your 0 RB builds. But I'm going B-Rob. Seems like the chat's going Warren. I'm going B-Rob. Perhaps this Mortal Kombat battle isn't completely over just yet. Before I get into the next, I want to talk to you about keeping it tight. Okay, we're keeping our drafts tight. We are planning now so that when it's that Labor Day weekend, that mecca of fantasy football seasonal drafts, we're keeping it tight. But here at South Harmon, we want to keep it tight for you guys. We're going to help you keep it tight below the belt, because Manscaped, we have a partnership with Manscaped. And if you use the promo code SHFF20, so South Harmon Fantasy Football 20, you will get 20% off. That's right, 20% off some mowers, all of their equipment. I mean, they have lights now on the 5.0, on their mower 5.0, where you can see what you're working with. No longer will you nick yourself. No longer will you cut yourself. No longer will you come out with some hatchet job. You ladies like, what happened down there? No more. No more. You keep it right, keep it tight with Manscaped, and use the promo code SHFF20 and get 20% off of your order. Wait, what was that? What was that? And free shipping. Oh, babe, we are cooking with gas. Not only will you get 20% off your order at Manscaped, you will also get free shipping by using the promo code SHFF20 at checkout. So make sure you can go ahead and get that Manscaped. And it starts, Corey says it starts on 8/20. Well, that's 2 days away. So we're here. This show is about game planning. It wouldn't be the game plan if I put this promo out while we're in the thick of it. 2 days from now, get yourself ready, because guess what? You are going to absolutely want to keep yourself tight, keep yourself right with Manscaped. Use the promo code SHFF20, get 20% off your Manscaped order and free shipping. Shave your jingles and pop out like Pringles. This guy, hey, when you're this good, Fizz, keep it for free. Don't do it for free. You gotta sell that. You gotta sell that line to Manscaped, because if you shave your jingles and pop out like Pringles, this is why you come to South Harmon, because the bros are always bro. It's the most fun you can ever have in fantasy football. South Harmon FF, we here. All right, the next Mortal Kombat battle, or whatever it's gonna be called. Leave it in the chat. What should I call this? Name game. Everyone calls it the name game. Him or that. They always call it blah, 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 blah. Try to look for something original here. All right, here we go. Next one is a battle of premier tight ends. Mark Andrews versus Trey McBride. You can have the old bull, or do you want the young calf? It could be another Manscaped reference, actually, because when he talks about Never mind. You've seen the movie. Let's talk about Mark Andrews. Now, Mark Andrews last year only played 10 games, so the overall stats are going to be a bit lower than we're expected. But we all know that this is a perennial top 3 to 5 tight end in fantasy. But in those 10 games, 61 targets, 45 receptions, 544 receiving yards, added 6 receiving touchdowns. Now, I'm not going to really dip too much into the analytical profile because it's a bit skewed. You see the dominator ratings that he was the most dominant. He had the third highest yards per route run, but that's actually a metric where he's excelled at in the past. He was second in terms of tight ends team yards per team pass attempt. So before he got injured, he was doing the damn thing. He looked like Mark Andrews. He was playing like Mark Andrews. He's one of those guys that can be a difference maker if you're in leagues where that can be allowed. Because as the wise man Cooper Troop says, no tight ends matter. Tight ends just simply don't matter. And last year, given he only played 10 games, it's going to hurt his warp for sure. He had a 0.69. Very nice. Very nice warp for Mark Andrews. He was 11th at the position, 98th overall, so he was very replaceable. Any tight end that misses games like that is absolutely replaceable. But right now you're having to use a top 50 pick on him, taking him early in round 5, which it doesn't seem all that early. There's a range that the tight ends just come off fast and furious, and he happens to be right in the thick of that. But I have him right now as tight end. Let me bring up my ranks. Tight end 4. I have him as a tight end 4, top 5 tight end. So I got tight end 4 for Mark Andrews. Let's go ahead and make the case for Mr. Trey McBride. So last year, he played 17 games, but he didn't truly kind of hit the scene, didn't really start becoming a focal point of the offense till about week 6. Doesn't matter. We're not really playing semantics here. We're not talking about an arbitrary cutoff date. We're just really here to talk about his overall season and what we think he'll look like in 2025 or 24. Getting ahead of myself. All right, last year, 106 targets. Love seeing tight ends with 100 targets. 81 receptions, 825 receiving yards. He had 3 receiving touchdowns. That was good for 10.7 fantasy points per game. That was 8th most in fantasy football, which is, like I said, pretty strong for a guy who didn't play all year, wasn't a focal point all year long. But again, another player who had over 2 yards per out run, so that's super encouraging. He was able to separate as a tight end. That makes life for the quarterback so easy at a 2.28 target separation, which was 5th amongst tight ends. Right now, drafting, again, he's going in that similar tight end bonanza range. Bonanza? Am I saying that right? Bonanza? Is it a bonanza? Chat, is it bonanza? I don't know. My brain just shut off. But anyway, you have to use similar pick capital that you would for Mark Andrews. So the decision will be, is it Andrews or is it McBride? There's no arbitrage here. There's no discount. We're talking about one or the other there in the 4th, 5th rounds. Trey McBride, like I said, going around pick 47, somewhere in the late 4th, early 5th. Last year, he was a little bit better in terms of warp than Andrews. But again, I was pretty taken back to find he only had 0.79 wins over replacement last year, 8th amongst the position, 83rd overall, which tells me if you're playing in the home league, if you're in a home league, and by home league I mean one quarterback, start 7 or 8, no tight end premium, he was pretty replaceable last year. I mean, when you look in terms of his warp, he was as valuable as Javonte Williams last year. He was as valuable as Brandon Cooks last year. So I in terms of who do I want, let's look at the chat here. Fizz wants Andrews, tight end 1. McBride will lose automatic. Bringing up the Marv thing is a great call because we don't know what that is going to entail. When you add a player like Marvin Harrison Jr., a lot can change. Castle Black's also taking Andrews. I'm sorry, I have to do it. I wouldn't be myself if I wasn't just saying exactly how I feel about this. I'm letting my quarterback potentially break the tie. If I went Lamar early which would mean if you're going to get Andrews, you're probably going to have to go 3-4, which is not a bad process, not in this day and age. Then I would obviously be more aggressive on Andrews if I have Lamar, or if I was planning on waiting and being a little bit extra aggressive on Kyler, then I would go McBride. In terms of the season, I think we are looking at the tight ends, 2 top 5 tight ends. Like I said, I got Andrews at 4, McBride at 3. We're cutting hairs here, but I guess if we're going to just defer to the rankings, I'm going to go McBride by just a smidge. But because the overwhelming chat is saying Andrews here, well then I guess Andrews moves on. Andrews is victorious in this week's fantasy football Mortal Kombat. The next pairing here is another. It's a decision battle. This isn't arbitrage. This isn't discount. This is who am I taking in the first round if I want to go running back, and Christian McCaffrey is not on the board. Or if you're nervous about the calf injury, Bijan versus Breece. Bijan Robinson versus Breece Hall. Last year as a rookie with Arthur Smith trying his hardest to make sure that he would, he would do it. He wouldn't do shit. Still, 214 rush attempts, 976 rushing yards, added 58 receptions, which is what we need to see out of a guy like Bijan Robinson, 487 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns, 14.5 fantasy points per game, which was good for running back 17, but he did play in all 17 games, so that totality boosted him up to running back 9, which, again, if you're using your first-round draft capital, then you want him to play all fucking 17 games. There's no doubt about that. But he was a big participant in terms of the passing game. He was second in routes run, first in routes run, second in route participation. He created over 1,000 yards. That was the 5th most. He evaded top 10 tackles. His yards per touch was top 10. Bijan checked the boxes on a prospect like that you're looking for in terms of going 8th overall in the NFL draft, going first round in fantasy drafts. You need a guy who can play. You need a guy that can catch. And by play, I mean play. He can stay healthy. He can make catches, and he can create on his own and be dynamic even when the offense is not moving. And that was absolutely Bijan Robinson last year. Let's look at the WARP for Mr. Bijan Robinson. Again, because he wasn't necessarily used in the way that we all probably would have loved to see, it was a bit lower when I was doing some research here, thinking where I thought it would be top 10. It was just outside at 13, but still 1.23 wins over replacement, 13th at the position, 37th overall. So it puts him in the range of the Devonta Smiths, Chris Olave. So he's right there. He was definitely a valuable player to have in fantasy last year. And again, you're gonna have to use those top end pick capital. These are the battle of the beasts here in the first round. He's coming off the board around pick 6, pick 7 in the first round. So you're gonna have to use that. The decision here is, do I want Breece or do I want Bijan when it comes to breaking it down for 2024? In my ranks, how do I have it? Well, I got Bijan at number 3. So what does that mean? Well, let's talk about the adversary. Let's talk about the other guy. Let's talk about Mr. Breece Hall. Last year, coming back from ACL, it took him a handful of games. It wasn't until week 5 where he really took off. He had a good game in week 1, but he was kind of slow in weeks 2, 3, and 4. Week 5, woke up and he was off to the races. Had himself a dynamic season. 994 rushing yards, 76 touchdowns. Stay with me. Yeah. We love that. We love seeing 70 receptions of our running backs for about 600 receiving yards, 9 total touchdowns, 17.1 fantasy points per game. That was the 6th most in the NFL. He evaded the most tackles. He had a great yards per route run. Obviously, if you're going to catch 76 passes from 600 yards, you're going to be truly dynamic in that category. He could create yards. He was dominant. So he had a huge target share, 17% target share, which was 4th most amongst running backs. And then last year, his WARP was 1.60. Let's go. 1.6 WARP, so almost 2 wins over replacement. That put him in the same ballpark as, the wide receiver 6th. He was more important to your builds than any quarterback, any tight end, and almost every wide receiver other than the top 5. Breece was Himothy.com. Breece was everything you wanted. last year, and that's why I'm using, again, 8th overall pick, first round, blah, blah, blah. We're talking here. But in the battle between Bijan and Breece, give me Breece Hall. And it's razor close. Like I said, I got Breece at 2, running back 2 in the seasonal ranks, Bijan at 3. They're both very good. But again, I want to go with, 1 in the hand versus 2 in the bush. I saw Breece Hall eclipse 70 receptions. I saw him push 1,000 yards rushing, and I think he goes well over 1,000 this year with this offense being way more competent than it was a year ago with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is going to bring a level of professionalism. He's going to allow the drives to carry on, and this is the year where Breece Hall is – you can see 1,200 rushing yards. Again, probably not 76 receptions because they will push the ball. Maybe it's more like 60, 65. But he'll still have right on 500, 550 receiving yards. And the total touchdowns this year will eclipse double digits. Breece Hall going for more than 10 total touchdowns seems like the lock of the century for me. So I'm going Breece. Let's see what the chat has to say. First, I got to bring this up because Fizz, you're right. Of course, I'm starting the show this early. Everyone's going to be against me. It's a fair point. I mean, it's a fair point. But again, we're in training camp, guys. We're training our bodies to be ready to get up early on Sundays to make sure we dominate in all of our leagues and get that money. Get that money. Breece up. Breece is my favorite. Bijan probably. Okay. There it is. I like Breece as well. So, okay, I got some guys on my squad. There we go. Yeah. Even Harry Snowman, shout out to you, Rob. He has more Breece than Bijan. Yeah. Well, I think that's a clean sweep. I think we could say Breece. Breece wins that one. All right, let's move on to the next battle. Actually, before we do, I got something I want to talk to you about, okay? Because we got a few draft spots left, and my man Mike has been working his tits off to make sure that this is a full draft, and I'm gonna do my part as his boy. So you got to go over to. It's called Beat South Harmon over at Full Time Fantasy. It's a live draft that's going to be happening on the 24th. It's at 8 Eastern time, so don't worry. It's at night. You can do it after work. You can have a drink, sit back, and absolutely relax. But it's a best ball underdog kind of style tournament with a grand prize of $5,000. It's a $50 buy-in to go ahead and try to beat the boys over here at South Harmon. I am involved. I signed up. You got to sign up too. We got a few more spots left. Make sure those things are filled by tonight's end so Mike can go to bed early. He can rest easy. He can get ready for his work week without thinking about full-time, because full-time will be full after today. Let's do it, guys. Let's get out there. Make sure you sign up. Try to beat me. Try to beat Mike. Try to beat ATM. Try to beat South Harmon. And you go right over to southharmonff.com/beat South Harmon. That's the link here. southharmonff.com/beat South Harmon. Come try to take us down. $50 buy-in, which is nothing when you win that $5K. And it's best ball. You don't got to check it. It's not a lineup league. It's not something you have to worry about week in, week out. You can just do the draft, leave your team, give it some TLC throughout the year, and then try to get that underdog style best ball victory over at Full Time Fantasy. That's one last time. At Full Time Fantasy, go to southharmonff.com/beat South Harmon and get your ass signed up today. Next battle, and I did see it in the chat, Fizz, you are right. I did win my first game of Mortal Kombat. Take a round of applause, baby. Let's get excited about that. Sometimes victories are just that more sweet when it takes a little bit of time to get there. It takes some time to climb that mountain. This next battle is a battle of a couple guys that are later in drafts, guys that you kind of they are on the cusp of being a roster clogger in seasonal leagues, or they could be game changers in seasonal leagues. And I'm talking about Curtis Samuel versus Romeo Dubes. Now, both guys have received a fair amount of hype in training camp, so I wanted to make sure that we were talking about these guys as well, because it's tough to make. I'll admit it's tough to make the decision between Bijan and Breece. I get it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Bijan and Breece. You're coming away with someone who's pretty good. These type of decisions are the decisions where you may have something or you might have a free roster spot. And, again, it's not death. It's not over at that point. But if we can make sure that the decisions that are made kind of help more than hurt, we can win on the margins here. So let's talk about Curtis Samuel. Now, Curtis Samuel, he was signed by the Buffalo Bills for 3 years, $33 million. It was about one of the more lucrative free agent receiving contracts to change teams. So there was some confidence laid out by the Bills that Curtis Samuel could come in and help this offense. Last year, 91 targets, 62 receptions, 613 receiving yards, added 4 receiving touchdowns, 9.8 fantasy points per game. He wasn't a massive difference maker for fantasy last year. Doesn't even register on our Warp tool because it just wasn't really all that exciting. Actually, no, he comes at the very end with 4.47. So about a half a win above replacement, which was 50th amongst wide receivers, 118th overall. Not that valuable, but we don't care about what happened in the past. We care about what could happen in the future with a guy like Curtis Samuel. And when you look through the analytical profile, he stands out in his ability to separate. Almost a 2-yard separation there, 1.92. The volume wasn't there, but he's always shown sure hands. He's always shown the ability to be pretty versatile in an offense. And Joe Brady likes that type of thing. He did that with James Cook a lot last year, putting the running back out in motion. But I think this year we see the receiver come back and maybe take plays out of the backfield, things of that nature. Right now he's coming off the board. Let's see here. I just had it and I lost it. This is why you don't wake up early, folks. Actually, this is why I wake up early, for the fun of it. He's coming off the board right around pick 122, somewhere in the early 11th round. So not taking a whole lot of investment when it comes to Curtis Samuel. But right now in my ranks, I have him I think a tad bit higher than some in the industry in terms of consensus. I am at wide receiver 48 right now. Right in the same range. I have him actually higher than Jameson Williams, Keon Coleman, his teammate, Khalil Shakir. I have him as the highest ranked Bills receiver. That could change after seeing how good Shakir has looked, but I still love Curtis Samuel and what he brings to this team and the veteran leadership, the most veteran wide receiver on this team, believe it or not. And this team has aspirations to win, and that doesn't matter for fantasy per se, but what it can help us is kind of get an overwhelming understanding of how they'll operate. Will they do the right things? Will they buckle? Blah, 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 blah. That's kind of the, again, bro science-y type stuff that I'll look to. But his adversary, his counterpart here for today's Mortal Kombat is Romeo Doubs. Romeo last year had 96 targets for the Green Bay Packers, 59 receptions, 674 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 10.3 fantasy points per game. He was wide receiver 46 on a points per game basis. And again, being the number 2 pass catcher last year for the Packers, will he be able to do that this year? I guess for Romeo Doubs, the thought here is, does he supplant Christian Watson? Because he's not going to supplant Jaden Reed. That's the number 1. Dontavian Wicks, he's looked good. He popped again in the preseason, but he's kind of fighting for that. Those 3 guys, Doubs, Watson, Wicks, 2 will emerge as being the guys that get on the field more than the others. And will it be Doubs? Reports are telling me it is. The reports coming from Green Bay Packer camp is we are going to see a 3rd-year boom from Romeo Doubs. But what he needs to repeat is the volume in the red areas. Last year, Romeo Doubs, 17 red zone targets, 14th amongst qualified wide receivers. So he was getting looks when it mattered most. Last year, his warp, again, it wasn't all that significant. It wasn't really a replaceable. I mean, he was a very replaceable type of player, 0.75. So he was 40th amongst wide receivers, 88th overall. A pretty replaceable player is Romeo Doubs. Now, who are you going to take? You're going to take Curtis Samuel around 120 or Doubs at 120, right? They're both going in the exact same range. For me, who am I taking? I'm taking Curtis Samuel because there's uncertainty on the pass-catching hierarchy on both teams, but Curtis Samuel is the most senior receiver, the most versatile receiver on that team, and Doubs, quite frankly, is probably going to be a contested catch guy in that offense where Jaden Reed will get more targeted touches or orchestrated touches, however you want to designed touches. So I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel here. But if you listen to the hurdle, not this past week, but the week before, Cody went out on a big limb talking about Romeo Dubes. He thinks there's a chance he gets, 1,200 receiving yard type shit. And that is why I've gotten some Romeo Dubes in my dynasty leagues, but in seasonal, I'm not going to be getting a whole lot of Romeo Dubes. I'll get more Curtis Samuel at the end of the draft. Especially Matt Huff. Shout out to you, Matt. Wicked Hicks is the best wide receiver. Don't sleep on him. I don't know if I can go with that. Don't know if I can say that, but I don't know. Black goes Samuel. Okay, give him Samuel here. He's pretty quick. Yep, that's why I'm going. Best ball, take both. That's right. So when you sign up for the Beat South Harmon over at Full Time Fantasy, that's southharmonff.com/beat South Harmon. Get them both because they'll both have spike weeks. I agree with that in those type of formats. And this next battle here, this is a fun one. We got two more battles, and then I'm going to get you out of here on this early but yet beautiful Sunday morning. Battle of quarterbacks here. Okay, so these are 1 QB ADPs, not super flex. I know this is blasphemy here on this channel, but we're trying some new stuff here, some redraft stuff. It's going to be a battle of Anthony Richardson versus Kyler Murray. Konami code Bonanza. Who is the Konami code quarterback that you want in fantasy this year? Let's start with Anthony Richardson. There's not a whole lot to go off of in terms of production. He only played in those 4 games, but in those 4 games, boy, did he flash. He was QB4 in week 1, QB19 in week 2, and QB2 in week 4. And then he got hurt the following week, and that was a wrap for his season. But we saw his ability to run, to create fantasy points. But there's no stats. The warp isn't going to calculate for him because, again, he didn't play a lot. But the case for Richardson is athleticism. It's athleticism. We're talking about 6'4", 245 pounds, 4.43 speed, insane burst. And the reports coming from Colts camp is he's becoming a better a better passer of the ball than they expected in year 2. And we're seeing highlights of Alec Pierce making plays downfield, of course, Adonai Mitchell and Michael Pittman. But those are coming from Anthony Richardson. He's throwing dots out there. And right now, of course, because of that upside, that tantalizing upside, he's coming off the board in 1 QB leagues, right around pick 55, somewhere in the mid-5th. As he has become the number 1 Konami code quarterback after the big, call it 7 or so. That includes some pocket passers, which in 1 QB, don't take pocket passers. Take rushers. You guys run the ball. You want the Konami code type of quarterback. And right now, heading into the 2024 campaign, I got Anthony Richardson at QB7. Definitely like him as a top 8 guy this year. I definitely like his abilities. I definitely like the offense that he's in, the weapons he's surrounded by, the offensive line that he has, the fact that he plays his home games indoors, the fact that he plays in a division where his away games are in Florida and Tennessee. There's a lot going for Anthony Richardson that I like. I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I have him as a top 8 quarterback. Let's talk about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, again, isn't a guy that we can really talk much about his 2024 season or 2023 season because he only played in those 8 games. And some of those 8 games, it took him some time to acclimate to the new offensive coordinator, new head coach, new style. But he was in the top 15 almost every single week. He flashed and had 3 top 10 QB performances. He was always in the 20s. And again, it's because his ability to run the football, his ability to get the ball deep. He's a good deep ball thrower, and which is huge for that type of archetype, that type of quarterback. And when they gave him a clean pocket, he had damn near 70% completion percentage. So he's accurate. Kyler's been one of the more accurate quarterbacks over the last 5 years. His warp last year, again, let's check out the warp per game, actually, because I want to make sure that he gets his fair shake, given the fact that he didn't play in a lot of games, only 8 games played last year. And he was, when you're scrolling, still only 22. So I'm not going to use warp for either guy. I'm going to take it out for both. But for me, I have him this year ranked as QB6, so they're neck and neck. But the difference is, for me, you get a bit of a discount when it comes to Kyler Murray according to ADP. So I mentioned Anthony Richardson's ADP. Kyler Murray is coming off the board right around pick 72, somewhere in the late 6th. That two-round difference is enough for me to go Kyler. Now he's going to have Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, we talked about earlier. This is a year where he can return that top 5 value. He's been a perennial top 5 fantasy producer throughout his entire career. And now that he's healthy, he's fully, almost 2 years removed from that ACL tear. And this is going to be a year where he bounces back in a big way. So I'm going to go Kyler Murray based on ADP. Giving me that round difference is going to make a big difference for my builds. So I'm going to go with Kyler. But if it was a decision of one or the other, if we see Kyler come up, Anthony Richardson come down, they're both in the same round, and I have to pick one or the other. Man, it is tough to pick against the scary output of Anthony Richardson. Fizz in the chat, he says he's going A-Rich for the excitement of a crazy season cut short. Exactly. That's what he was going to wow last year, and we saw that in week 4, how good he looked being on the ground and as a thrower. He trusts Kyler to get it done. Marv, of course, in the pass catches. Draft A-Rich first. Smile if Kyler falls. Yes. That's in that. See, Fizz, like it might be early, and the boys might be against me because I got you here to class too early. But we're kind of on the same page here. That if all is given, I would take Richardson, but because I get that bit of a discount, even if it's a little one, I'm taking the discount. I'm taking the discount. And last promo I'm going to go before we get into the last Mortal Kombat Battle of Fantasy Football Supremacy here today is a little game that we call Pros with Joes. So Mike, our friend, McNutted, Iowa Mike, the Tear Down King, is participating in this year's Pros with Joes. He's playing for the Wounded Warriors Family Support. I mean, come on, guys. What a cause he's playing for. So every dollar donation is one entry for a chance to co-manage with Mike. So if you want to play with the Tear Down King, you want to be around Mike and help him take down the Pros with Joe's tournament, give $1, give $10, give $100. Get those entries up. Give yourself the best chance to co-manage with Mike, but also help with such a great cause. The Wounded Warrior, Family Support Foundation is fantastic, and they sacrifice themselves for the good of our country and our freedoms. So the least we could do is support them back. And it's for a great cause. You can donate $1, and it'll get you an entry. And then you can, if you donate $1 million, I can guarantee you'll win. And then you'll get to play with our guy, Mike. So Mike's playing with Pros with Joes this year. And as a crew at South Harmon, we're very, very excited for him to do that and get that opportunity and raise money for such a good cause. So make sure you're checking out Pros with Joes. Find Mike. Make sure you donate. Get yourself an entry, and then you can co-manage with the big dog, Big Mick, Mike McNutted. So the last battle on today's show is a fun one. I'm just going to get right to it because it's a doozy. Rome Odunze versus Xavier Worthy. So this is really more of a battle of what they will do as opposed to what they've done. Of course, they're both rookies. Rome Odunze right now is coming off the board right around pick 70 in the mid-ish range of round number 6. Xavier Worthy's coming off the board right around pick 77 in the early portions of round 7. Both guys will get helium. So we are looking at, it's August 18th. If you haven't had your seasonal draft quite yet, it's probably in the next few weeks. And within that time, both of these guys will be 6th round picks. We saw Rome Odunze just have an insane connection with rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. Yesterday, Caleb flashed and did his best Russell Wilson in his prime Pat Mahomes impression, rolling out of the pocket, throwing across his body, 45-yard dot to Rome Odunze. They used him in an end around, which he got more than 10 yards. Rome is awesome. Rome is the better prospect than Xavier Worthy, and I don't think that's even close, to be quite fair. And I like Worthy. I definitely love Worthy. But when it comes to their ceiling play, it's a matter of, do you want to be tethered to Mahomes, but potentially be the number 4, number 3? Or do you want to be the number 2 for a rookie quarterback? Now, Caleb Williams is a big-time rookie quarterback. It's not just a normal guy. We're expecting a lot from Caleb Williams in his inaugural year as an NFL passer. But it's going to come. That's where the decision lies, and what offense do you want? Because they both bring such talent. One on one side, this guy right here, still getting used to graphics on the show. This guy right here, Xavier Worthy, the fastest 40 time in history of the combine. He was a 1,000-yard producer last year at Texas. We're talking about a bona fide 5-star player, a guy that he admitted at the combine was his best skills is stop ability. Yeah, you try to keep up with a guy who's starting and stopping that has that fast, quick stream muscles. And he was a first-round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. But this guy right here, when I did my offseason analysis, he was ranked pretty much as high as any wide receiver in the class that includes Marv and Malik. Rome Odunze was worth the top 10 pick. Rome Odunze has the height, the ability. He's one of the best route runners we've ever seen coming out of college. Man, it's tough. It's tough. Everyone's saying it in the chat here, and that's why I bring it to you guys, because I love the chat. I love interacting with you guys. He's going Worthy because of the Hollywood injury. That definitely is a big reason why to favor one over the other. Redraft one, give him Worthy. Corey wants Worthy. It does seem it does. But let me check my ranks. Before I reveal who I'm going to pick, let me check my ranks to make sure I'm right. Again, see, I made this hard on myself. And this is a process thing. Like I said, we're in the offseason here. We're getting ready for football season. We're trying to sharpen our swords here. We're trying iron sharpens iron. So I made this difficult on myself. I have Rome at 37, Worthy at 39. So I'm looking straight at my ranks, and now I got to make a decision. Am I going to make a change for the shit sheet 2.0? No, because Rhonda Commander's right. It's Rome now, and it's Rome forever, baby. It's Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze is just too damn sick nasty, and I'm going Rome all day because I love Worthy. I love Worthy. Worthy's going to take time to marinate in this offense strictly because Rashee Rice isn't getting suspended. Travis Kelce ain't going anywhere. And don't forget, the Chiefs were most successful last year when they ran the football. I'm not saying they're going to run the football. Don't kill me, please. Please don't get mad. I know it's early. I got all you guys up early, but don't kill me. I'm sorry. But the truth is the truth. So I'm going to go Rome Odunze there by the slightest of margins. But this was fun. And I got to thank all you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the game plan. Again, make sure you're using the promo code SFF. Let me start over. This is why I do it live. You got to have the poise. Kiwoom, have the poise. Use the promo code SHFF20 at checkout of Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping starting 2 days from now on the 20th of August. If you're into beating the guys over here at South Harmon, head over to southharmonff.com/beat South Harmon and join our tourney over at Full Time Fantasy. See if you can take down the boys. See if you can take down the tourney to win $5,000. And if you don't want to play against him, but you want to play with him, Mike is participating in this year's Pros with Joes. Every donation of $1 is an entry to become his co-manager, and he's playing for a good cause, the Wounded Warrior Support. So make sure you check all those things out and keep rocking with us here at South Harmon FF on YouTube, southharmonff.com. Get that warp tool. You want to kick the living shit out of your league mates. You want to beat all your coworkers. You want to make sure that you're the best fantasy football player in your family. Head over to southharmonff.com and get the damn warp tool. The warp tool will change the game for you. And if you're not exactly sure on what you're looking at, how to interpret the data, that's what you got the boys for. Come to the boys, ask the boys questions. If we know that you got the warp tool, you've paid for the warp tool, we will give you a little bit of advice. You go on the Discord, hit us up in the Discord. However you want to do it, we'll help make sure that you are the best fantasy player in your neighborhood using that damn wins over replacement tool at southharmonff.com. Make sure you're smashing the like button here on this episode. Leave a comment. Let's get that algo to take this thing to the moon. That's what it's all about here, boys. Actually, it's not what it's all about. It's all about you guys hanging out here on this Sunday as we prepare for football. That's just, geez Louise, it's just a few weeks away. Very, very excited for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Peace.